Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Ulysses Town Board. I will call this meeting order at 7:01 p.m. on February 14th, 2020. I'm sorry, not February. You just said February. I got February.
The agenda says
I know
December
December.
10th.
I know. So I'm here in February. I'm reading December, and I'm not saying January correctly. It is January 14th, 2025. That'll be the first item is to fix the agenda. May we please have a roll call?
Mr. Boggs.
Present.
Ms. Weatherby.
Present.
Ms. Olson.
Here.
Ms. Bouchard.
Present.
Mr. Goldman is not currently present.
Okay. We have an agenda that was posted last week. The date needs to be altered to accurately reflect January 14th, 2025, and not December 10th, which was our last town board meeting. Are there any other alterations necessary to the agenda? Okay, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, not have my timer ready, but I will get it quickly ready. Next up is privilege of the floor. We go back and forth in person and online. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address us? Excellent. There is nobody from the general public online, so we can move forward from there. The first item up is the next item up, I should say, is a public hearing on the 2025 fire contract. I will accept a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are open for public hearing. Any members of the public wish to address us on our fire contract?
I know that there is not much choice, so. Yes.
It is a mandated service and we are given a price tag.
Exactly, and we have no way to. I wish we did, I guess I'll say that as a member of the public, but.
Did we receive any written comment?
We did not, no.
Okay, well, I'm gonna give folks a little bit more time in case someone jumps on with lots of feelings about the fire contract. It is the essentially same fire contract we've had, I believe, for a number of years. The only update is the dates and the amounts. Okay, well, I guess we can close said public hearing. I don't think we had any comments last year either, really, except for Roxanne, which is appreciated. Nice to have one. Well, seeing as how the public has had an opportunity to participate in said public hearing and public has weighed in, who's available, we can move to close. Will somebody move to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to municipal board and staff reports, and I'm pleased to welcome Legislator Corman. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Wish everybody a happy new year. And since it's still January, let's see, we only have a few updates because with the holidays, there hasn't been quite as much going on, not as many meetings. So with our first meeting of the year, we elected a new chair and vice chair of the county legislature. So Dan Klein was reelected as chair and Greg Mezzi was elected as vice chair. And we also welcomed last week our new county administrator, Corsa Akumfi. And so we're happy to have him. And next on the list, I wanted to let you know, in case you hadn't heard, this is for the town of Danby. They were awarded a community development block grant from New York State Homes and Community Renewal for the amount of $695,000 to be used towards low and moderate income homeowner housing rehabilitation. And one of the reasons I wanted to let you know about that, if you hadn't heard about it, was it started with an award of $8,000 from the county to hire a grant writer to help look into housing issues. So if you are interested in learning more about the program that we have, you can contact our planning department. And let's see, stop my alarm there. Sorry about that. See, I only have one more thing that I can find here, and that is our the county airport is resuming flights to Washington DC coming up. I don't have the exact date right here, but that's in addition to the flights that we have now to a couple different places. So I'm really happy that that's going to be resumed. We had probably about 70–80% of the seats booked on those flights before. So it's helpful if you're going to DC, or if you're connecting to other places. And that's all I have.
That's great. That's great news about Danby. That's fantastic. For them. Thank you. Any questions for Annie? Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, any committee reports? Roxanne, is there anything you'd like to update on CSAC or water source protection?
We met, as you know, because it's on the agenda, and came up with some comments, honing down a 16-page document, that technical document that Clean did, and so, yeah, that's the last thing, that's what we did for January. We're working on establishing a meeting time for the rest of the year. We do that in January now, and set it and try and give it to Chris, but we don't quite have all the input yet. So there's that. On the water source protection plan, I think we're getting closer and having a draft for the board, at least, you know, it might not be the final draft, final, most clean draft, but we thought it might be useful to get it to the board sooner rather than later, get comments. We're working with to put the two, our committee did some of it, and then the technical, support from New York Rural Water, Jacob did some, and so we're merging that and taking another cut through. So I'm thinking realistically, in February, maybe by the end of February, we will have something to the town board to look at and give us comments on. Trying to get information on, you know, what DEC really wants to start to own it so that we can get it adopted. And I guess it's moving very slowly. Enfield submitted theirs like, I don't know, 9 months ago, and they haven't heard anything yet. And every time Jacob, our New York Rural Water support person said they've essentially told him to stop asking about it. So, because Enfield's also, so I don't know what's happening there, but it could take a while once we submit it to DC to get officially approved. But that doesn't mean that, you know, our town can't, you know, approve it and have it available, you know, as part of the comp plan discussions and other things. So yeah, that's mostly what I have. Yeah, sometimes in the next coming couple of meetings, I'd like to just give a little short summary to the board of some of the things that we learned from the advanced benchmarking that we did that got us the grant for the building evaluation of the town barn, and qualified us for the 100,000. And I was on the calls with Teresa and Scott and everybody. That project is getting going actually really quickly. The person who comes from the company that the NYSERDA works with to do the building evaluations is coming Thursday to walk through the barn, and then they said that usually within 4 to 6 weeks they have the report. So that, yeah, first it was thought that our CEC folks thought it could take through March to get them to even be able to come because they're so busy, but they'd already sort of slotted in the 16th. So yeah, so that's good. So things are moving along on all of those fronts. And then the next thing to do is to resume trying to get recertified as a bronze community. We might even have enough for silver, I don't know. With climate smart communities. And I worked with Michelle on that some, and I have a huge spreadsheet and all, but then all these other energy things with the opportunities and the crunch down of that program sort of took precedence, so we'll have to get back to that, so that's where we are.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Roxanne? Okay, wonderful. Anyone wanna update on their committee activities? Talk about comp plan?
Yeah, we had a comp plan meeting last week. We actually had a visioning session before the regularly scheduled meeting with the board. Mary was there. So you were in attendance
Online.
online, and Caitlin was there. So went through a couple different questions to try to get MRB some information on why we live here, what makes us stay, what made us came, what we see in the future, to try to kind of take the words and the hints and the keywords that we said and come up with the visioning plan. I'm very curious to see how they do that. Because we were kind of all over the board. But that's what they're paid to do. So hopefully we'll get some initial thoughts at our February meeting, and then we're gonna be scheduling a second visioning session with the town board. I think in the March timeframe, right before we start our first public meeting, is my understanding. So more to come on the visioning. We had 3 of our 4 focus groups where we've met with different industries and sectors of the town to do a SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat analysis on a variety of different aspects. There's one more left that we're looking to schedule at the beginning of February that's going to address land use, rural uses, which includes farming. So that one, we're going to try to do some pinpointed outreach to the local agricultural groups to really get them to try to come and voice their thoughts at that meeting. So we might have some news and announcements for newsletters coming up. And we might also do a direct mailing to the original group from the ag committee that we had reached out to a year or 2 ago. Just to try to get people to come. So more work coming. I positive, 99% positive the survey is out there for folks.
You're looking at me and I can check. I think it is.
I
think it is.
thought it was out there,
I have heard.
but if not, that would be another newsletter item we can send.
And I know there's also discussion about putting out a postcard to everybody,
Right,
so.
with the link to the survey.
Yeah. Yep.
So. I think that's it for comp plan.
Youth Commission met last Tuesday. We went over the Clyde survey results. Which it's a long time and nationwide survey that youth take every 2 years. So we were looking at the 2023 results. And so they'll take it again the fall of this year. And they ask a lot of questions related to their engagement with school, their support systems, like who they can go to for help. Like over 150 questions or something.
I think so.
It's really sizable. But Paul Penick shared those results with us, and there was a lot of good conversation, I think, that was generated from that, and how we can help tailor our program to better serve that population. And we have our job position. I know we have at least one applicant for the youth services position that we have open, and that position, that posting is open through the end of the month. So we'll start interviews in the relatively near future. And what else? Was there anything else with Youth Commission that I'm forgetting? We'll be in person next month. Is there anything else that we?
No, I think we're gonna be just ramping up towards the spring activities on the rec department, but then also Rachel's gonna be working through more high school groups or more work, civil work opportunities with the high school students.
No. And then with Three Falls, we had a working meeting last week. We have a working meeting with part of the board, like the operations side is meeting again tomorrow. No, not tomorrow, Thursday. And then we have our next meeting is the first Thursday of the month, I think, is the next February, then our next February meeting, and that'll be our organizational meeting. We're at this phase where the state is physically managing the property over the winter. So if you go down to Barton, and we don't have a name for it yet to call it other than that. If you go down, there's some barricades have been put up, buildings have been locked, things like that. And that's all been done by the state to protect it from damage over the winter or use that's not allowed. We figured that there was probably, if we collected all the keys that had ever been issued for Camp Barton, it would fill a very large bowl or bucket. And so they ended up changing, physically locking the buildings. And so we'll go through in the spring and go through the process of rekeying buildings as we need to, but we're still waiting to hear on a Parks and Trails New York grant that we applied for. Those typically get announced in September or in January. So we're hopeful that we're successful in that, because that would pay for a planning grant to basically do an assessment of the property and start putting the phases together for reinvestment. So then we can take that document and fundraise, and both with public and private sources. But all things being equal, it should be open for passive use in summer 2025. And Fred Bond was at the First Presbyterian Church a few weeks ago, or in December or January, talking about it. So, but we don't have an official press release from the state to send out. So, but he was in the news about talking about it. So I don't think I overstated anything that he didn't already mention. And yeah, it's still pretty early in the year. So, Mary, anybody else have anything they wanted to update us about?
Well, the bee committee met in December and we decided that once a month we would provide a little blurb for Carissa's
I
newsletter.
enjoyed it this last time. Thank you.
And so we're gonna rotate, have different people on the committee write little things,
Nice.
informational things. So the first one was just, who are we? What are we doing? When do we meet? That kind of stuff. And we had a beautiful photo from Tim Martinson, who likes to take pictures of bees.
That's awesome.
Which was great, because I didn't know that was the kind of bee. There's so many specific bees that I don't know about.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, keep an eye on that newsletter. I learned some more about bees. Awesome. Anything else anybody wants to update us on? Okay. Then we can move on to fire protection district agreement. We have our standard resolution on this. For the interested public, we have to, fire is a mandated service that we are required to provide. And fire districts are required to have public hearings. So we're doing it for our portion of the district. It was duly noted, advertised, public hearing on December 14th. And the sum for the 2025 calendar year is $263,315.41. So I will move this resolution to approve the contract.
Second?
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, well, then I will call for a motion. All those in favor of approving the 2025 fire protection district agreement. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to the CSAC took, as Roxanne already stated, CSAC took the many-page document provided by Clean and put together a condensed version. And this is a draft that we can consider, and amend as the board so chooses. We're currently, for the public, for public edification at our last town board meeting on, our last regular town board meeting on December 10th. We asked, that the DEC extend their public comment period. And before we could even submit that letter, they extended their public comment period, but we had other comments, so we included those as well. I think it was right the next day, like the next morning they extended it, so we just didn't quite get it to them in time, but they did do that, so we have to get it in this week. So now they're accepting public comments on the permit, the mining permit. So I appreciate the CSAC getting together so early in the year. Thank you for organizing that, Roxanne, and for those on your committee who worked on the letter. So I'll open it up to the board for discussion, and then we can decide whether or not you're amenable to sending it to the DEC tomorrow. Any thoughts?
So the Red Sox mine collapse? Do you know how that collapsed?
I do, but I don't know.
Was it driller?
I don't know if it was drilling, but it was
Yeah, was it
the same kind of salt.
some-
I don't know.
Some
though.
errant drillers and it caused the collapse, so
Uh-huh.
I think it'd be more appropriate to refer to the lake and what happened to it. Salinity, because it's.
Oh, the precedent set, you mean, instead of saying the precedent set?
Well, it wasn't that the mine didn't collapse, the driller, like drilled through the roof of it.
Right, but then it contaminated the lake with salt.
Right, I think you would refer to the lake rather than. You know, that lake had a mine collapse.
So given the environmental.
Yeah, it wasn't, it
Incident that
wasn't the
occurred,
fault of the salt mine. That it collapsed.
I should suggest how you want to change the wording.
Well, what about given the precedent set by the contamination
as a
caused by
result.
the collapse?
Yeah,
of
but
the-
refer to the lake, I think, because there's a lot on the lake and what's happened to it since. I forget what the name of that lake is.
Well, while Liz is doing that, Michael, do you have a suggestion then for how to tweak the language using that?
As soon as she comes up with the, refer to the lake and the, if, it's been a while since I read it. The
Yeah, I might be able to find it here.
salinity of the lake.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It talks about what happened, but not
Yeah, it doesn't,
what lake it is.
Right, I'm trying to.
It's Colorville.
yeah, and then number 3 is our zoning doesn't extend past the shoreline. So I think that would be more appropriate for. You know, the mine does extend. Below the boundaries. Of the town of Ulysses. Because any mining is controlled by the DEC. There's nothing to do with our zone. They kept bringing that in about our zoning in the lakeshore zone.
Yeah, I actually had a question, just trying to think of. Our discussions and what feedback we had gotten about Nate about the zoning. And I agree, because the land under the water, under the lake is owned by by the state, technically OGS.
Yeah, I mean,
That-
so
And we can't zone.
we can't
state land?
regulate, we can't regulate upwards. We can't, it's called upzoning, we can't upzone. So when I ran this letter by Nate, he actually pulled this out as saying that he doesn't think it's a like number 3, that it's fully accurate. He also though didn't see any sizable problems because this is only public comment as opposed to taking a more formal action. So I think we could tweak that if you want. So he actually didn't think it constituted a new use because the mining itself is already like it's a it was a pre-existing, not pre-existing, but it was grandfathered in. It predates all the mining happened, started long before the town even had zoning. So, you know, he thought that that wasn't quite accurate, but he also didn't think it, I mean, I can find his exact email if you want to hear verbatim what he said. He wasn't deeply concerned just because it was public comment. He said the reference to the brine disposal being a new use that is not permitted under the town zoning regulations is arguable. The mining activity is grandfathered, and insofar as brine disposal is part of mining activities, then it's allowed. Not sure if you want to weaken the language in some fashion or not. Again, given its comments, I'm not sure it'll ultimately matter. But that's one lawyer's opinion.
I don't know what you're finding. I'm not finding that it was in a lake.
I know, I'm trying to find it too. It's in a whole bunch of clean things, but I can't find it right now.
It looks like it's on. Almost on the Genesee River.
Can you Google it?
I think
No, not in googly.
I mean, I think I was actually mapping it. I wonder if you could map it.
Like that's where the salt mine is. It says it, I mean, that's the Genesee River that goes up to Lake Ontario.
Mhm.
There's no,
And then
lake
where's
there.
the I thought that was Pennsylvania.
there's another name, Retzoff salt mine. You think it's Pennsylvania?
I thought it was like someplace down south or
I'll
that
try
they
to-
said.
I didn't. if I
The one in
Do you remember-
1994 occurred in
There's a-
Livingston County, New York.
What is it?
The Retzoff salt mine collapse in 1994 occurred in Livingston County, New York.
Hmm.
The collapse caused the mine to flood, which contaminated local water supplies.
I wonder if it got the underground aquifers.
So maybe we could just say local water supplies.
Yeah. Water sources, water supplies.
Yeah. Local water sources, yeah. I don't know, I can't find- I think I got so many things from them that I can't sort through it all.
So is this the one that happened in 94?
I think so. It's
So
the
it's not
one
like
thing
an
I'm finding.
earthquake caused it.
Yeah, I saw that too.
That's what the USGS document says. Well, how do you feel about, given the precedent set by the Retzoff mine collapse and subsequent
Water.
water
Water
contamination?
contamination.
Yeah.
Like that.
And then do you want to address anything in 3? Do you want to change any of that? As you said, you had questions about it.
Well, just that it's, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a use or not a use in our town zoning regulations because it doesn't, our zoning doesn't apply to it. So that, I guess that was my concern. The talking about the permitted uses within the LS zone. I mean, I honestly would be fine if we just said the town of Ulysses. Lake Shore Zone extends to the center line of Cuba Lake and the town was not consulted as an involved agency in the secret review process. I mean, just,
I think the
Being
bigger
part
issue
of
is that
the-
we weren't, yeah.
right, and just
Not
being,
really neighborly.
exactly, like we should have been an involved agency.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
So I mean, I would be fine taking, unless there's a real
No,
reason to keep the uses, but it doesn't really matter.
Harry could, speak more to the committee's discussion, but that was an alternative, but
Okay,
they wanted this left in, so I think the biggest issue is that the town wasn't consulted.
Right, when we should be.
They weren't.
So that would be my recommendation,
Yeah,
would just
like-
be
yeah,
delete
the town of
those,
Ulysses extends.
right, center line of
Center.
Cuba Lake, the town was not consulted as an
Yeah.
involved agency, get everything out between.
So we could just do the town of Ulysses extends to the center line,
Yeah.
because the zone doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Because that's the real issue in
Right.
this section.
Right, so we wanna retitle that. Because.
Lack of town involvement,
Or seeker,
seeker.
do what, lack
mean-
of seeker involvement or.
What do you say?
Yeah.
Interested party or something? Yeah.
We should be an
Is that
involved
what you-
agency,
Or, okay. Is that?
because I mean, interested would be. Just like one of our committees that might wanna wanna make sure that they have. Awareness of what's going on in involved agencies, should have a little bit more stance in the seeker process.
So, interested agency, do you want, is that fine as a title, or do you want,
Is it interested or
Seeker
involved
and
agent?
seeker.
oh,
involved
sorry,
agent.
involved, I'm
Is
sorry,
that- Is that
yeah,
the right wording for it?
yeah, involved agency.
Yeah,
So you wanted seeker in the heading also? Or,
I think that just clears,
It's just an idea, since that's nothing except one sentence now, instead of having it be a heading, we could just move it up to the sort of intro paragraphs where it says. Our primary concerns outlined below center around the environmental, land use and safety aspects of the proposed one, and then we can just say that. The town of Ulysses extends there and we weren't consulted, and given the substantive issues, we could just plug it into that.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Not have its own thing with just one.
Yeah.
Kind of squishy statement.
so put it after regulatory framework, the first sentence.
No, I was gonna put it under, after. Our primary concerns in the intro,
Yeah.
like dear Mr. Yeah. Oh, yeah,
yeah, no, I think that's
Yeah.
exactly where you just
yeah,
said.
after.
Yeah.
regulatory framework,
Yeah,
so-
sorry, there was the last two words I was.
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
at.
got it,
Yeah.
okay,
But yeah, okay, I like that,
and then delete. Read and make the next one.
right. Right. That was my shot.
Anything else anybody was concerned about? Or want to amend, I think it'll be good.
Under Cargill, the list of employees too, I think that's supposed to be 9 with an E at the end.
Sorry, where,
Last page. They list all
oh,
the,
yep, there's an E,
the folks.
okay. I think I can read all of my notes, so I will amend that. There was one name that we had to fix last time, I don't think it. Excuse me, I don't think it needs to be fixed this time then.
I don't remember what it was, I didn't remember calling that one out, but.
Yeah. Okay, any more discussion or comments? Okay. The resolution in the packet on page 2. The resolution just kind of lays out the timeline of when we submitted comments and other docs and other things to them. So I included Chris in the resolved. I included italic language of amended, and I think that should be included because we did amend it. So the resolution is resolved that the Ulysses Town Board authorizes the town supervisor to submit a letter on behalf of the town outlining the numerous environmental concerns outlined in the letter drafted by CSAC and amended by the town board. Be it further resolved that we're asking the town clerk to submit it by tomorrow. Make sure to get it in. So I will get it to you tomorrow for submission. Okay, I will move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further comment or discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, and thank you again to CSAC for the time and energy that it is hard to distill long technical briefs into understandable words. So, thank you very much. Just the next item up is just a quick announcement. And I think it can just actually feed right into the priority projects in 2025. I did announce it in the town newsletter, and I sent it to the board right before Christmas when we got the notification. But I think on the 23rd of December, we heard that we got about, it was just over $520,000 to replace the Garrow Road culvert. And that's really exciting because the town board will remember that we received in 2023, we received a grant from the DEC to conduct a study of the 6 worst culverts in the town. And we reviewed those documents, the report last late spring, early summer, I think it was in May, we reviewed it. We had that, we got a very good presentation and saw just the terribly dilapidated state some of our culverts are in, and picked the worst one that we didn't already have funding for and proceeded. And this is DEC money that we originally applied for the study, and we got the study, and then that study gives you access to special DEC funding to start replacing things. So you've done the planning, now you can get access to the money. So this is our 3rd infrastructure grant now in about 2 years. So we're at just over 2.8 million in money through Bridge New York and through New York State DEC to replace some really important infrastructure pieces. That's the good news. So very pleased about that. I think we should apply for another one in the summer because we can take that same report and go after, because some of these end up taking a couple of years. I think it took us 5 years with Curry Road to finally get that large piece of infrastructure funded. So picking away at these, I think is truly in the best interest of the public from an environmental standpoint and also from a fiscal standpoint, because there's very little match required. There's staff time that's involved, but overwhelmingly these are projects that are getting paid for by these outside funds, which really is a benefit to the public and to the taxpayer in Ulysses. So the overview of priority projects, and these really feed into, or these are really, I'd like to go in early in the year to just remind all of us what we've already committed to doing, because I think it's easy after we get out of budget season to forget about what we have going on as we move forward as with other projects. So keeping in line on the infrastructure projects, we went through the public process of design with Curry Road Bridge and got it all submitted in the fall to DEC, and it has proceeded to languish there. And it took a while to find out what happened, but the person who was responsible for our district unfortunately had some serious medical issues and ended up passing away right after Christmas. I think the 27th, 28th, somewhere in there. So they've had to restaff. No, I'm sorry, this isn't at the DEC, this is the Department of Transportation. And so they've had to restaff, and so everything is delayed. And so I'm gonna have to be coming back to you. So because they're basically, we need to get, and I can send you the notes from the detailed conversation with the engineer, with Barton and LaJudas, but basically what's in process right now is we went through that public process, we went through the design, and we need feedback on that, and then we have to do some work on engineers have to do a couple of weeks of work on their end, and then they have to resubmit something for review by DOT. And the long and the short of it is if we were on track to be able to do the bid process December, January. And right now, best case scenario, we're looking at possibly April, which is a terrible month to go out to bid for a 2025 project. So that's best case scenario, and we don't know if we're even in the best case scenario. So we may have the opportunity to decide whether or not we want to put out a package and see if there are any takers for doing the work this fall, or spring, or summer, I should say, summer or fall, or October is typically the ideal month to put a project out for public bid. Because that's, it's a good time to get engineers when they're planning their projects for the next, or not engineers, contractors, when they're planning their projects for the next year. So we may have to decide at some point whether or not we want to hold off a few months potentially. But it does mean there's no, I don't see any conceivable way, short of someone having a gap in their schedule and wanting to bid on our project, even if we got to be able to put it out in April. I don't see how we get to construction in 2025. And it's just sitting with with Department of Transportation. So we're hopeful we can push things through, so we're at least in a position to make a decision about whether or not we put out to bid and see what we get. So we could choose to do that and see if there are any takers, or if we want to hold off, but until we have someone from DOT basically going through the work. That's kind of where we are, unfortunately, on that. So that was really disappointing. Because you'll remember when the public information session was like September. So, I mean, it's just been hanging out there.
And don't you think the cost may increase as it gets delayed?
I don't think costs will go down, and there's nothing to suggest that costs go down. I mean, and we may decide that it's worth taking the chance and putting it out to bid in April and seeing if we can get a contractor to do it in the fall. That might be where we are, but I wanted to give you a heads up as soon as I got that information, so we can plan accordingly. But yeah, you're right, Mary, it's not going to get cheaper to do anything.
Do we have any timing restrictions on that?
The money, no, we've
Okay.
got, it's years to use
Okay.
the money. These, I mean,
More just,
yeah. It's more the bridge, it needs to be replaced.
yes.
And, and we would like to use the money. And we would like the process to move forward. But the timing is just, frankly, it's outside of our hands, and there was not good communication between DOT and anybody, it sounds like, of what the process was or what the holdups were. And I can appreciate that also, given privacy and people's rights to that. So that's where we are on that one. So kind of a bummer on that one. We are waiting on contracting. We got the award announcement for Maplewood Road. You'll remember that, but we haven't gotten contracting yet for it. So we're prodding them with sticks and being like, please send us a contract so we can move forward on that one. I would imagine that that's going to be the best case scenario. That's going to most likely be a 2026 project. It is a restoration. It's not a complete tear out, and it's a more, there's another word for it, but it's not a brand new one. It's a restoration, rehabilitation. There you go, rehabilitation. And then I would imagine, given that Garrett Road is also coming from the DEC, that we got the award announcement, but we're gonna be waiting on the contracts related to that moving forward. In addition to that, we have the parking lot project, and they're starting to get their pieces in a row on that. The next step internally that we have to help manage is working and informing the adjacent property owners about their options to tie in to our project. You'll remember there was another bid amount, an alternate bid for the rear portion owned by adjacent property owner for the rear section. And I drafted language this week that's going to be going out to that property owner, basically letting them know who we went with, what their estimates were. There's basically two options for that property owner in particular. They can choose to basically contract with the town to have the work done, and they could deposit money in an escrow agreement, and we could work directly with the engineer as part of the whole process, the engineer and the paving company, so that they could do it, or they can choose to contact the paving company themselves and just take care of it on their own, or they can choose to not do anything. And per the contract, Mary, I think this was before you were on the board, but I can't remember. Were you, I don't know if you remember being on the board when we signed a contract with that property owner. There was a property change, a real estate transaction, and we needed to clean up the relationship related to the parking lot into that rear portion. And what that contract specifies, it was a 2021 contract. And what that so I think you were on the board then, yeah. The contract specifies that if we ever change the parking lot, because the paving is ours, but it's on their property. That if we ever redid the parking lot, that we would agree to rip up that asphalt and seed it to restore it to green space. However, parking, if that happens, the overall size of the parking lot would obviously diminish. And as part of our parking lot project, the board approved the design, we're gonna stripe it. So that's gonna really provide very fixed parking spaces, and I think what the board will wanna do is consider a management plan for the parking lot to make sure that we have dedicated spaces for the public to be able to access the building. Obviously, we're going to have more, we'll have 2 dedicated ADA accessible handicap spaces, so that'll be clearly marked. We're gonna want to make sure we have some dedicated spaces for highway, or not highway, but town vehicles and staff. And so we might want to think about moving in the direction of what the village has done. The village has already done all of this. I mean, they have parking time amounts, there are limits to how long you can park there. They have dedicated spaces. And so I think as we formalize the design of our parking lot, we're gonna need to have conversations about, I think, formalizing the management of it. Just because in some ways we'll have less space, because it is formalized. But I think it'll also be a lot, we wanna make sure that our priority is making it publicly accessible, to the public, whether they need accessibility, or not. So that's gonna be a time commitment for staff, because there are all those other pieces in addition to the construction management, which fortunately we are having done by Barton and Judas. The comp plan, I know there's certainly been a lot of discussions about facilitating it, having it, a fairly wrapped up by the end of the year. I believe that's still the timeline we're working on to the best of our ability. The environmental review might be the wrench in that plan, I don't know. But moving in that direction, that's gonna be a big project of the town this year. Mentioned an update on Camp Barton. This is really going to the programming side and not the programming side, the management side is really gonna kick up. That's gonna, Rich and I will be, I think, very busy with that. There's be a lot of work to manage the ramping up of a very large new state park. I'm very excited about. I think the public will be very excited about, and making sure we do a good job with that. We're continuing to get, Krista just mentioned to me, yet another one last week, people chirping with questions about public water and how they can access it. There was obviously plenty of discussion about public water at the Comp Plan Steering Committee meeting. We did 2023, we adopted our water policy that kind of outlines the process. I spend time, not every month, but every couple of months answering questions about that, and people asking like, can I have public water, and why can't I have public water? And what I would like to do now that we have a staff member who's doing a bit more for the DPW is I'm hoping to have her assist me in putting together some more public information so that we can actually have some education sessions and offer those educational materials to the public about how water districts get formed. There's a lot of inaccurate information, and it showed up at the comp plan meeting just last week. There's a misunderstanding about who pays for water. Just for the public, the water is paid for almost exclusively by the people who get public water. It's not, once a water district is formed, New York State has very specific rules about who pays those bills and where those costs come from. People and I don't think it's inaccurate thing to assume to some degree, but there is assumptions that there's a lot of funding available for public water systems. There's certainly good money available frequently for communities who meet the economic thresholds necessary to get subsidized water systems. Ulysses is not really in that category for the most part. And so that makes some of the cheaper money, so to speak, harder to get in Ulysses. But that doesn't mean that there aren't places that would benefit from connections to water, or whose residents are committed to going through the process and they have, legal rights to petition. And so getting some better information, I think would be a good investment in time that we're already spending. So moving forward with some education about just what our water policy allows an expansion of, related to how it intersects with New York State water law. And you'll remember Salo Habitat got a municipal grant last year from Tompkins County. And that's not a project that takes up a tremendous amount of my time, but I know it's something that Carissa works on, and that our planning department has worked on, and that there's community activity related to the town that's doing that. And I've heard definitely conversations about what else might we like to do there. Is that Margaret Pritz has done a tremendous amount of work there. When that property was acquired, there wasn't a plan put in place for how to manage it, and we've been very grateful to have a lot of volunteer time that has really taken care of the trail system and the trees there. And long term, that's probably not going to be possible. And so we need to plan for a future where we have a management plan, and so maybe not going to a full management plan this year, but starting to think through some of those processes that we need to do. And then there's the NYSERDA money for purchasing a new electric vehicle. That's something that Teresa will be spearheading at least internally in this calendar year. The annual audit's coming up that I hope you approve shortly. That is obviously a significant time commitment in the supervisor's office, not me as much as Blixie, but it takes up quite a bit of her time. We approved funding to hire a consultant to establish the policies and procedures for running our summer camp at Camp Barton. We originally thought that, it might be possible in summer of 2025, but it's now looking much more likely to be the summer of it's not going to be 25, but the summer of 26. And having having a consultant to do that, to help us figure out how to do it, so we could launch something there successfully.
Through the town or through the Three Falls?
So we dedicated money in the town budget to pay for it, and we used it in the A fund because both at village and recreation is under the A fund anyway. But it's in part because we know there's a need, we know there's the capacity to grow a bigger program there. And what we discussed, I believe in the line by line, was that this is an investment in being able to increase revenue. Being a bigger program, we'll be able to provide services for a lot more students, because right now we're maxed out spatially. We have more demand than we can meet. It's the hottest thing to grab. I was in California and I got up at 4:45 in the morning to make sure I got a slot for my daughter for a couple of weeks. And we were certainly not the only family up making sure and having alarms go off. Liz reminded me 2 years before, thank God she did.
Goes fast.
It goes because we sell out very, very quickly. So getting a program set up at the state park is beyond what our recreation director can add at his time. And so this will be like a one-time consultant, create the plan, and then we can staff it as needed, as we're able to. But then, and it might take moving over more gradually, but at the state park, we don't have, it's been nice to be at the school because it's ready for us, right? Like, we don't have to worry about a lot of things associated with it, but the readiness is offset by that it's too small. and, we have to leave, at a certain time. We can't provide, more services in August because they have to effectively kick us out so they can do their work to get the buildings ready, so.
It's also transportation costs.
Yeah.
Because they have the swim bus, they're going to walk-ins on Mondays. And the park to Gannick the other days of the week.
Being able to be at a facility, but then we have to think about the transportation of how do you get kids there who may not have the transportation to get to the park in the first place, and maybe it is some kind of bus, or it is some kind of borrowing a school transportation. But those are all pieces that have to be thought out. And then Roxanne mentioned the energy audit for the highway barn. That's obviously coming up quickly. And then we've already, the Solar Liberty is our contractor, or who we have the contract with for our solar panels, and we've made some initial outreach to them because in the contract, you can't begin that conversation until 365 days before the contract terminates. And so we need to, in the contract, there are some options to either, send all the solar panels back, buy them from Solar Liberty at a price that they set, or lease them for Solar Liberty at a price that they set. Roxanne made sure that we knew about the county has contracts on a similar time frame. And so connecting with Terry Carroll at the county also to see if there's some economies of scale in terms of contract negotiations, potentially. But in doing that, what Scott would like to do in his wonderful role is, I'm deeply proud that he became head of facilities, that we have a dedicated person in charge of facilities. He wanted to do, and I think it's a good idea, he wanted to do, have an independent consultant come in to assess the functionality of the current ones. Roxanne has a lot of data on how they performed, but we are having ongoing issues and lack of clarity over the intersection with NYSEG. And I spoke to Chris at CCE about it, and I think that the information is unclear of, it's kind of in the same vein as at the organizational meeting, we talked about the electric vehicle charging station, really looking at how much are we spending, from the different components, what are we getting back, and incorporating that in. So reached out to CCE for some recommendations for consultants. We're really looking for someone who's not looking to sell us something. That's not what we're interested in. We just want to understand the functionality, because one of the things we'll be doing is bringing back to the town board, okay, here are our options. Here's what we know about this current system. What would you like to do? Because we were fortunate to get the $100,000 from NYSERDA that we can use for solar panels, and it's good timing to think about how they're functioning currently at town hall, what long-term costs or short-term costs we have associated with them, and then consider how that feeds into doing a new solar array at the highway barn, or dealing with some of the solar issues we have here, bringing all that information back to the board. And this doesn't include, these are all things that are to some degree embedded in the comp plan, or not comp plan, into the budget. And this doesn't include all those activities that crop up unexpectedly. And that have some time sensitivity, such as going through local law changes. We'll be doing that. I'll be bringing that to the board for consideration for the exemptions related to seniors, disabled, and veterans. We're allowed to increase those exemptions. I mentioned that, I believe, at the December meeting. I'll be bringing you a draft local law at the next meeting. And also I reached out to Jay Franklin to provide us with financial information about what the impact to that is. I don't anticipate it's going to be a very large financial impact for passing off those exemption costs to the rest of the tax base. But Rich in particular wanted to know what those were. So I think that's good to know. So I'll get you that. So that's coming up at our next town board meeting. And then, if you were wondering, I did hear from Grassroots late in December, with interest in possibly picking up their water district, and continuing with their water district, because they took a break, from working on their component of it. Back, man, I want to say the summer. And I think their festival schedule contributed to it. I couldn't remember exactly what month it kind of petered off. But they did reach out, and I got back to them in about 30 minutes and said, sounds great, let me know what you want to do. Here's where we are. Here's the balance of your escrow account. We need to deposit more money in order to pay for more things that need to be done. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. Happy to work with you. So I haven't heard back on that, but I would anticipate that that's going to pop up again this winter. They tend to pop up. Tends to be a good time for them to work. So I would imagine that that's coming back onto my plate. And that process has been really useful, because I think it's creating the process by which we can directly act with people and organizations that are requesting outside water. There's certainly been other groups before this, or properties before this, that have gotten outside water, but creating a streamlined approach from point A to point, whatever, using those escrow agreements, because we didn't spend any of the town's own money on that project. It was exclusively paid for by the water requester. And I think that's the great benefit to the town. There's certainly staff time that's associated with it, but the expensive fees are engineering and legal, and we did not bear those costs. So any questions about that smorgasbord of projects we have built into the budget? And more stuff will emerge. So, as it always does, which is great. Okay, cool, thank you for hearing my spiel. That brings us to new business, the 2025 amendments to the municipal corporation agreement. And so this is a separate one, separate printing. And so whereas the town of Ulysses applied for membership in the Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium. No, that's not true. Hold on, wait a minute. Now, Blixie told me this was the one I needed to use. We're already members.
This sounds like new.
Yeah.
Yes, but then see, Blixie, this is what Blixie told me I had to use, and now I'm looking at it. That does not make sense, Blixie.
I thought this was the one.
She actually sent me, she's like, this is the one you have to use, because she said, and I put a flag on it too. Where's my flag? Aha. Make sure.
Do we change the
Oh,
date
no,
to 2011?
Nope, so, I uploaded the wrong one. So this is the one if you're a new group.
Okay.
We are not a new group. So I will read this out, and Chris, I'll send it to you. Whereas the town of Ulysses municipality is a participant in the Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium, a municipal cooperative organized under Article 47 of the New York Insurance Law. And whereas the municipal participants in the consortium, including this body, have approved and executed a certain municipal cooperation agreement, the agreement, effective date of October 1st, 2010. And whereas Article 47 of the New York State Insurance Law, the insurance law, and the rules and regulations of the New York State Department of Financial Services set forth certain requirements for governance of municipal cooperatives that offer self-insured municipal cooperative health insurance plans. And whereas the agreement set forth in section Q2, that continuation of the consortium under the terms and conditions of the agreement or any amendments or restatements thereto shall be subject to board review and upon acceptance of any new participant thereafter. And whereas the municipal cooperative agreement requires that amendments to the agreement be presented to each participant for review and adopted by a majority vote by its municipal board. And whereas the town of Ulysses is a recipient of the proposed amended agreement and has determined that it is in the best interest of its constituents who are served by the consortium to amend the agreement set forth in the amended municipal cooperative agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that upon receipt and review of the amended agreement, which was provided in the packet, the town of Ulysses approves at a meeting of the governing body held on January 14th, 2025, and authorizes the chief elected official to sign the 2025 amendment to the municipal cooperative agreement effective 1/1/25 of the Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium as recommended by the Board of Directors. So that's the real resolution. So after having listened to me say that, I will move it. Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion on it? Liz, any words of wisdom you want to share after your year of representing us?
Yeah,
the
no, but
consortium?
Nate did look at this. I
Yes.
didn't have any issues with the agreement either.
I just included the wrong resolution.
Yeah, I think they just write it up because they're adding new,
Yeah, they
People.
added,
I don't know,
I
5 or
wanna say
6.
7 different municipalities this year. It was the biggest number they've had.
Yeah, I did very fine. I'm gonna sign it.
Do other places do this, or is this like a unique?
You have to. Oh, like,
No, I mean like the health consortium. Is this model happening in other places, or is this like
I don't know.
us?
I think it's kind of unique. Started
It's
with
really
like a
cool.
small group and then
Yeah.
that, but I mean, you can
Got
see
it.
the list. In like the full agreement, you can see the
Yeah.
list. It's
The areas
now
that-
covering, yeah, lots and lots of different parts of villages and towns within the state. And cities, there's a couple counties, Seneca County.
So that was a move and a second. We had some discussion, so I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay, great, cool. Next up is, our annual audit from Thero. This authorizes, it's already budgeted for. This basically just authorizes me to sign the engagement letter. They've already sent it to us. And they keep pestering me with a DocuSign, like, don't forget, like, I can't sign it yet. So they will be coming in February. I've got the exact date. Any discussion or questions about this? I'll move this. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any conversation about it? Okay. I can tell you, I appreciate the board doing this. I think it's good practice to do this. And if you don't do it, you wait a few years, it's really, really expensive. It's not cheap to do this, but we have another municipality whose team we played this past weekend, whose mayor is going to jail for state funds, things shouldn't have touched. So I am personally glad that someone else comes in and I don't do that. So just very transparent on that. But I'm glad to have outside eyes on town systems. So, okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then we have our youth services contract. This is the same contract we had last year. Basically, that they give us money in exchange. It's matched by both the town and the village collectively through the budget process that was adopted in the 2025 town board budget. The Tompkins County has allocated and thank you very much, because legislator Portman is still here. Thank you very much for the work of the legislature in restoring funding and improving funding for youth services. I'm very grateful for that. We were assuming flat allocation and we ended up getting a little bit of a bump. I know it was a hard financial year, so I appreciate it. They've allocated $17,066 in matching funds for the youth development program, college tours and civic engagement, and an additional $14,140 in matching funds for the youth employment program. So this just authorizes me to sign that. I will move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Krista, did you send me a voucher resolution? By any chance?
No, I did not.
Did you pull that? Or do I need to pull that? We'll do that while we do minutes. Next, so just looking ahead at upcoming events, town facilities will be closed next Monday for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Our next regular town board meeting is January 28th. And then our first one in February is February 11th. that brings us to minutes, and you had, I think, 3 sets of minutes you put it together. Okay. I'm gonna do this one. I had one modification to the minutes, Carissa, in the organizational, meeting minutes, the allocation that's approved in the budget for Trumansburg Community Nursery School. It's inaccurate in the document. The approved amount from the 2025 budget is $1,250. So that needs to be changed. Did anybody else have anything else they need to do?
No.
Okay. Budget number 639 through. Okay, so I will move that. Is there a second? Those with that amendment?
A second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Okay, and then. Krista, tell me if I'm missing anything of this. This is one thought.
There are 3 funds, so it'll be the HA.
So which one is this? Do you tell me quickly? I'm sorry.
Okay. Voucher number 6 in the HA fund for $21,964.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We're just gonna use her numbers instead of what I'm trying to write down.
Vouchers 630
Through 672.
through 672 in the amount of $57,166.13, and that is all funds A through SW. And
And
then
then we have these ones.
abstract number 1, vouchers 1 through 29 in the amount of $130,456.57.
And these are 2025. This is 2025, money, right?
Correct.
So the first,
Abstract 1 of 2025.
yep, so the first 2 were 2024. Paid towards 2024 funds. This is 2025. Okay. Well, I will, they were reviewed, so I will move that, we reviewed and approved the payments as specified by Chris.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I jumped right past board notifications because I don't have any, and we don't have any budget modifications. I would expect next month is gonna be our end of year budget modifications, but they might not be as necessary as in previous years because we did a bunch of budget modifications back in December. Blixie walked you through all of them after she did all the policy walkthroughs, so I think your eyes, I know mine had potentially slightly glazed over. But we did a lot of budget modifications then, so hopefully that doesn't require much more resolving. We're certainly not yet modifying the budget for 2025. So that brings us back full circle to privilege of the floor. Roxanne, did you have anything that you would like to privilege us with?
Yeah, I don't know. I was interested to hear that there's problems with NYSEG with regard to the solar panels, and I didn't uncover any of that when I was digging through all of the information to submit things, so I'm interested to hear about that. Who should I ask? And I'd really like to be part of the discussion and working group helping to think through the solar stuff. I was the one who got the solar leases originally with Solar Liberty, and I did a huge amount of work on all the energy stuff and the improvements in these buildings and to get all that money. And so I'd like to be just part of the discussion, and I know a fair amount about some of it and I'm interested in it. And so anyway, just who would be good for me to talk to find out what those issues are, because I
Well,
was not aware of them.
sure. Well, I think you've been talking back and forth with Teresa, and there's gonna be a meeting set up with Scott. It was just in passing that Chris from CCE told me the NICEAG generation figure is much lower than expected, and I'm not sure why, though it may have something to do with the remote net metering and solar generation credits they use to track this.
The nice generating from what, I guess I'll ask.
The NICEAG, that's this,
They have numbers on their bill that are called current generation and they are not net, they're not gross solar generation. We've gone through that like a ton of times with them. Those numbers are very messed up, but I don't think we can use them for anything. Anyway, when I do my little thing about what we all pulled together, I can explain that aspect of it, but I don't think looking at those numbers tells us accurately what we want to know. It's true, but NYSERDA's numbers are bizarre from time to time. Some of those months are just, they make no sense at all. But they also don't reflect what we're generating.
okay, well, I'm just passing on what
Right,
he shared with me, so,
yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, great, I will ask him for it.
Yeah.
We were talking about it before.
yeah, sounds good.
I mean, we have solar panels at our house and we read them every day. We get the nice, but you know, we've done the whole thing. You can see what's the difference between what they call current generation. And what is actual. Cause it goes back and forth across the grid. So. Anyway. Spend a lot of time going around and thinking about it. So that's what I suggested. That's great. Check in with Scott and Chris about the rest.
Sounds excellent. Wonderful, thank you, appreciate it. Okay.
So what are we gonna do without Rich here?
The recording.
Yeah.
A little cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
You can have the honors if you want.
Yes, so, accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Close.
Good.
Move to adjourn.